Have you ever really thought about what happens behind the scenes when a company's entire digital world just crashes? I mean, it's way more than just flipping a switch back on. So let's get into it. We're going to dive into the critical and usually invisible process of how organizations actually survive a total digital meltdown.
Yeah, this quote from our source material really gets right to the point, doesn't it? We're not talking about a little glitch or a slow network. We are talking about everything, physically, gone. The servers, the computers, the whole setup. Poof. And that means customer data, financials, your entire business operation, just vanished. So, how on earth does a business come back from that?
Well, here's the secret. Surviving a disaster has almost nothing to do with what you do during the crisis. It's all about the digital insurance policy you set up months or even years before anything bad ever happens. It really is all about the prep work.
And the absolute gold standard for that preparation is something called the 3-2-1 rule. It's this really simple, super easy to remember framework, and it's basically the foundation of all modern data protection. Let's break it down.
It's actually kind of beautiful in its simplicity. First, you need 3 copies of your data. That's your original plus 2 backups. Think of it like your house key. You've got the one on your keychain, and maybe you give another to a neighbor you trust. Second, those copies need to be on 2 different kinds of media. So you might have one on a physical hard drive and another one up in the cloud. And finally, and this is the really critical part, one of those copies has to live somewhere completely off-site. That's your backup key stored in a safe deposit box in another city, totally safe from a local disaster like a fire or a flood.
So you're on board, you're doing the 3-2-1 rule, awesome. But now you have another decision to make. How are you actually going to make those backups? Because it turns out there are a few different ways to do it, and each one comes with some really important pros and cons. Okay, this table really lays it all out. A full backup is just what it sounds like. It copies everything. It takes a long time, but getting your data back is super fast and simple. On the other end, you have an incremental backup. It's really fast to create because it only copies what's changed since the last backup, but getting your data back is a pain. You have to piece together all these little changes, kind of like assembling a puzzle. And then there's differential, which is a nice middle ground. It backs up everything that's changed since the last full backup, so it's way faster than a full backup, but a whole lot easier to restore than an incremental one.
Right, so we've got our strategy sorted out. Now let's rewind and jump right back into the moment of disaster. Imagine alarms are screaming, lights are flashing, and there's water just pouring into the server room. This is it. This is the moment where all that planning gets put to the test.
And this is where we meet the hero of our story, a process called failover. The best way to think about it is like the emergency power in a hospital. The main grid goes down, and boom, seamlessly the backup generators kick in. Well, in the digital world, failover is that heroic moment where your off-site backup system instantly takes over and runs the whole show. And here's the magic of it. When a failover works perfectly, most users don't even have a clue what happened. They might see a little loading icon for a second, a tiny glitch, and then they're right back to what they were doing. The website stays up, the orders keep coming in, the business avoids a total shutdown. It's practically invisible, and honestly, that's what makes it so incredibly powerful.
Now, here's a weird thought, something that feels a little counterintuitive. You'd think that surviving the disaster itself is the hardest part, right? But the truth is, getting back to normal, that recovery process, is often way more difficult and way riskier than the initial failure.
And that process is called Failback. See, it's not just about turning the old servers back on. The most important part, the one detail that can completely destroy the whole recovery, is synchronizing all the new data that was created while everyone was working on the backup system.
Okay, let's walk through this timeline to see what I mean. The server room floods. You immediately fail over to your backup hot site. Let's say it's in a different state. Now, for the next 3 days, your company keeps working. People are writing new reports, processing new orders, sending thousands of emails, and all of that new work is being saved to that backup site. Then, finally, you get the call. The main site is fixed and ready to go. And this, right here, is the single most dangerous moment in the entire process. Before you flip that switch to go back, you must, copy those 3 days of new work from the backup site back to your primary site. If you forget to sync, if you just fail back without that step, all of that work, 3 entire days of your company's progress is gone, forever. It's such a simple mistake, but the consequences are absolutely devastating.
And while all this intense digital drama is going on, we can't forget that the original disaster was physical. So the recovery isn't just about data and servers. There's a massive physical cleanup and restoration effort happening at the same time.
I mean, just look at this checklist.
You're talking about trying to salvage vital paper records like contracts and deeds. Sometimes they even use special techniques like freeze drying to save documents that got soaked. Before anyone can even go back inside, structural engineers have to say the building is safe. Industrial hygienists have to check for mold and other hazards. And the whole time you need security to keep the site locked down. It's a huge, complex operation with a lot of moving parts.
So I think the big takeaway here is that a real, solid recovery plan is so much more than just an IT problem. It's a holistic plan that has to think about the building's safety, saving physical records, and making sure the entire workplace is secure and ready.
Which really leaves us with one last big question. Having a backup is one thing. That's step one, and it's essential. But having a tested, thought-out plan to fail over, keep operating, and, most importantly, safely fail back, that is what separates surviving from a true catastrophe. A backup is not the same thing as a recovery plan. So you have to ask, is your business truly ready?